Today, we're really here to talk about LUCR-3. You may know LUCR-3 better as Scattered Spider. LUCR is our designation for financially motivated threat actors. When it comes down to it, really, LUCR-3 likes to do the fun parts of the engagement. They want to get in, do the data theft, move around laterally, the things that are enjoyable for them. But when it comes down to handling the extortion, let's get the pros in, get Black Hat in to do that. Early days, they were into crypto mining, kind of like everybody else. They learned that crypto mining just isn't as lucrative as it used to be. So they've moved almost solely to extortion and ransomware more recently. In reality, it's anybody who has intellectual property, code signing certificates, or really any data that is sensitive enough that you'd be willing to pay a large extortion fee, right? That's who they're going after. And they're using the Fortune 1000 list kind of as their marker for that and just kind of going down the list. All right. Now that we know a little bit more about LUCR-3, let's talk a little bit about, how they operate when they're in an environment. One of the things I really like to stress to folks is a lot of people have vendors maybe looking at their IDP side of the world. Maybe they'll have a CDR solution or a CSPM solution covering their IaaS portion of the world. They'll have a SSPM for their SaaS, maybe just standard SIM style for their CI/CD pipeline. But the attackers don't view the world this way, right? They're not viewing the world in boundaries, and neither should you, right? An attacker is going to use the tools of the trade, to essentially get to whatever their mission is in the same way any employee would, right? It is essentially log in to the IDP. And now that you're in the IDP and have bypassed MFA, you have a menu of options in front of you, and use those menu of options to carry out your goal. In many cases, that is get some source code, grab the code signing certs, maybe get some employee data along the way, all those types of things. So let's start here at the top. How does LUCR-3 gain access to the environment? Well, first thing they're going to do is buy some creds. There are many marketplaces out there where attackers can just go type in a domain and find some credentials for an environment. Now, that gives you one part of the equation, right? It gives you the username and the password. What that doesn't give you is the MFA portion. Now, LUCR-3 is notoriously known for SIM swapping, right? So if you have SMS enabled for your MFA solution, and this attacker will attempt to leverage SIM swapping to gain hold of that second factor, that token, and then log in through that. SIM swapping doesn't give me access to a user's phone app. It just gives me access to their texts that are coming through, their calls that are coming through. Another method that they have used in the past is just push fatigue, right? Once you have credentials that are working, now do a little push fatigue attack. So essentially just sending a whole bunch of requests for access, hoping somebody's going to see those pop up on their phone and finally click approve after a while. And then lastly, attackers like this are not opposed to just straight up calling an employee and tricking them into logging in for them, or offering them money to do it for them. Once you have access to that, you want to make sure you stay in. So the first thing that they're going to do is register a new device. Now, cool thing here is this is their first kind of opportunity for a misstep. They may, for instance, if you're an Android user, many organizations, the victims are Android users. Well, this attacker really likes to use Apple devices. How often do you see somebody switch from Android to Apple at this stage in our lives, right? Where we're all baked into our ecosystems? Not very often. So that's like a first red flag. And they'll also add secondary authentication mechanisms as well. Many solutions allow you to add an email address where your one-time password can be sent to if it needs to. So they'll register a Gmail account, an external account as that multi-factor authentication. For instance, for me, they're smart about it. They would do ian.all@gmail.com, right? Or something indicative of my name. So that, to the casual observer, it doesn't look like anything's wrong. One of the things I forgot to mention here at the first step, though, is they do their homework about the victims. Who are they targeting? They're targeting your IDP owners. They're targeting also the people who are going to have access to the data that they want to get a hold of. As I said, once you've bypassed MFA, now you've given yourself a way to continually gain access by registering your own devices. You have a menu of options in front of you to carry out your mission. And that's where we'll talk about next.